Hi friends, welcome back to my channel Heal Lift Rise. My name is Carla. Thank you all so very much for joining me here. Truly appreciate every single one of you, all of your love and constant support to the channel. I am truly grateful for every single one of you, so thank you so much. I wanted to share a very beautiful experience, interesting experience. It was so beautiful, and it actually taught me a lot that I had recently, and very unexpected, because you know how the universe works. Amazing, full of surprises, as always. But over the weekend, on, I believe it was Saturday, this happened. I went out and did some shopping. I went to go run some errands and do some grocery shopping, and it was really interesting because I, kind of had it in my mind of a plan of how I wanted to kind of go through the day, get my stuff, because I wanted to make sure I was home at a good enough early time so I could be here for my oldest. My oldest wasn't feeling good over the weekend, having severe stomach issues, and I wanted to make sure I was here so I could kind of help her and just make sure I monitor her, because she had been throwing up for a few days. So Saturday, I go make my way out. I go and get my groceries, and as I'm coming out of the grocery store, I only had a couple bags. So as I was going out, this gentleman, I kind of saw him in the distance, and he was coming around the corner. I was coming around the opposite side of the same corner. He had like long, knotty hair. I think he had like dreadlocks, but it was hard to tell because it was kind of just long and knotty. But he had his hood up, and I had almost run into him, and I wasn't expecting the sidewalk to be that small, and so I kind of like moved to the side and was like, oh, I'm so sorry. We both said sorry, and I'm going past him. As I'm walking past him, he stops and is like, ma'am, and so I turn, and he's like, you wouldn't happen to have some money or something that I can get some food? And he said he was homeless and he didn't have any money, and didn't have anything for food. So of course I'm like, yeah. I get out some money, and I had $5 in my wallet. That's it, $5. So I gave him the $5, and he goes, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I said, yeah. And I said, but look, hey, if you are homeless, you don't have food, like, I'm willing to go back into the store with you, and I'll go buy you some food. Like, we can go grocery shopping for you. Like, get a couple things. And he's like, yeah. I would really appreciate that. And so I told him I had to go put my stuff away in the car, and I would be right back. So I did. I came back, and we go into the grocery store. I'm like, all right, let's do this. So he grabs a cart, and we're kind of strolling around, and I'm just kind of following behind him, just seeing like, what he's gonna get and whatnot. And he grabs a couple things, and I was giving him recommendations because I'm like, oh, well, if you don't have a lot to eat, you should probably eat some fruit, eat some things that are really nurturing and nutritious for your body. And gave him a little advice, but I knew he was kind of just gonna get what he was gonna get, and that was the case. He got a couple things. We went and checked out, and I asked him, when we were leaving, I was like, what's going on? Like, what happened? Like, how I just kind of want to hear your story. And he was like, I lost my job, I lost my license, I lost, and I've been trying to get it back, and I can't get it back. And, and I guess, doesn't have him home. I don't know that situation. He just kind of stopped there and was just like, he's like, I'm just so frustrated with, trying to get my license back, and all of these things that are happening. And I was just like, I'm so sorry, I told him, I said, I just want to give you a little bit of piece of advice. And I said, with everything you're going through, and I was like, I'm really sorry to hear you're going through all this stuff that you are. I was like, but I really just want you to know that to never stop believing in yourself, never stop believing in what you are wanting to achieve, and that things can turn around and things will get better. So I encouraged him to kind of focus on what it is that he was wanting to happen, and to every night before bed to kind of focus on what he is wanting, what he is envisioning, and focus on the positive of what he's wanting to have in his life. If he wants to get his license back and drive a car again, and all these things. And when we went outside of the store, just to kind of get out of the way of people coming in and out, he started talking about portals, and he started talking about auras and all these things. And so, of course, I understand about some of this stuff, and I instantly feel like he has to be going through some kind of spiritual awakening. Like, this is the spiritual initiation. Like, you start going through a lot of stuff, and you can get really ungrounded during that time, which I really had suspected. I really felt that he was, just based on what he was talking about and how he was, just his energy. And you could feel it, but you could also just tell in how he was talking. But he was just explaining to me all of these things about portals and auras and all this stuff. And we were just like kind of getting into this conversation that really transitioned into, one that was just really, I guess, spiritual based. And of course, I start giving him advice about that. We just start having this conversation back and forth. He's telling me stuff that he's going through, things he's experiencing, things that, he doesn't understand, that don't make sense. And he kept telling me he felt like he had to fight people. Like, he has to fight other, like the energy, because he feels like energy gets attached to him and pulls him down. And he feels like he can sometimes get it off, but he feels like it comes back. And we're talking about all these things, okay? And I'm listening to him, explain his story. And I of course, at some point, I tell him, I give him advice, and I say, a lot of this is fear. I said, this is fear. I said, and I don't want you to be afraid of it. I said, but I want you to really understand that this cannot hold you down. This is fear energy. You're clearing your field of fear energy. Like, you're really releasing, and you're having to face it. I said, that's why you're going through this. I said, because you're seeing and experiencing the shadow, and you're feeling, and experiencing this fear-based energy. And I said, honestly, I want you to really look at it. And I said, not just observing, but, ask questions, ask big questions as why you're feeling the way you feel, why you're experiencing certain things. Like, ask, what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to point at? To try to get to a reason, a cause of why you're learning this. There's something to be learned. There's something to be gained. And I told him, honestly, the shadow, the darkness, is our greatest, can be our greatest teacher, because there's so much to look at, in that. And when we ask these questions, it allows us to go deeper. And it allows us to really be transformed by it, because we will start to see the whole situation from a different perspective of why we're truly seeing what we're seeing, or experiencing what we're experiencing. What is the cause of it? Because obviously we know for a big part of this is fear-based. So what happened in childhood? We can ask these questions. And a lot of it does point back to childhood trauma, and childhood wounding, and woundings we have carried from childhood and, into our adult life. So I, told him to not, just shove it away, because he kept saying, I don't want to, feed into, the negativity, which, yeah, that's great. But he kept saying, dispel negativity. That's not me. And I understand, when we're really in fear, we really believe that, fear has power over us. And it's really just us giving away our power to fear, because we're not rooted within ourselves, and we're not knowing, we haven't come to our own realization of our own true power. And, I obviously started talking and giving advice about, how we're here to be in our power. And, you know, he did say to me, I keep feeling like I need to create. I need to create. And I said, yes, because we're going to feel that way. You're going to feel that way. We're all going to some point feel that way because we're here to create. We're creators. You know, we are God in form. You know, having this human experience, you know, we're here to create. We're here to ground that energy and to express ourselves, allow our souls to have free expression of what we are wanting to create. And it it was such an interesting, like I said, experience, and it was one that was eye-opening to me because there are people, you know, like this, you know, a gentleman that I, you know, met that are literally going through the spiritual awakening and they feel like they're losing their mind. And he did tell me, he was like, I feel like I need to see a therapist. I feel like I am just out of, he's like, he kept going like this. He's like, I keep feeling like I'm out of body. I'm out of body. And I told him, you know, when we go through the spiritual awakening, when you go through that, and I did give him a small, you know, little back info of my spiritual awakening. I didn't go deep into it, but I did tell him, you know, I went through this too. I said, I went through what you're going through. And yes, you have to feel all of it. I said, keeping yourself open to what you're experiencing. And I was like, don't shut down and don't shut off, you know? I said, I know it's easy to do that. I kind of did that myself. I said, but you know, you're going through a shedding. You're shedding fear energy. You're shedding old, outdated energy. You're clearing your field and you're up leveling. And I said, I know it looks crazy and it might seem like people don't understand. And I said, but I'm here. I said, obviously we met for a reason. I'm here to tell you that you are just going through the spiritual awakening and this is part of the process. And you're going to come out a completely different person after this is said and done. You know what, I did tell him to ground because when you're feeling out of body, it really does come from not being grounded in your body. And so I know he said he meditates, and if he's constantly meditating but not grounding his energy back here, you know, to earth and connecting, you know, with grounded energy, then he's going to experience that. And I'm sure many of you have gone through this type of similar situation where you've experienced this feeling of out of body. And that's why it's so important that we ground our energy. So then we're not really floaty and, you know, feeling really out of sorts, because then it's going to be hard for us to operate in our physical world. It's going to be hard for us to get out, to talk to people. It's going to be hard for us to focus and think because our energy is going to be so floaty and everywhere. So I did give him some helpful tips of getting, you know, if he's out already in nature, grounding his energy, grounding barefoot on the earth, walking, connecting to the earth, doing grounding, meditation, grounding exercises. Of course, eating a lot of grounding foods, you know, foods from the earth, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and baked potatoes are very, very grounding in itself. But also plants too, you know, all the greens that we can eat and all that. But this just wasn't, like I said, it was an amazing experience. And I did tell him, like, I'm so honored to have met you. I'm so honored to have crossed paths with you. And I truly, truly feel like you're going to do something really great in this life. You're here to do some wonderful things, and don't lose hope. Don't lose faith in your journey, because you're here for a reason. And don't focus so much on all that you're experiencing now, you know, as far as what you see in your reality. And, you know, if things aren't as great, I said, keep focusing on what you want and how you want to create your reality, and focus on, you know, the positive things. I know for me, when I went through my spiritual awakening, I'm so thankful to have come across some of the information I did from spiritual teachers out there, because there are some really amazing, truly amazing spiritual teachers out there that helped me through my journey. And I feel like I wouldn't be where I am if I did not get some of that information. And I say some because there were times on the journey, as I'm meditating and going through all these things, there's times when I didn't know nothing about grounding. I was always meditating and always in a floaty state. And I truly believe that's why I wasn't physically able to do the things I needed to do in my life, because I was always meditating and I was so ungrounded and really like floaty energy, and had no idea of just all that I was experiencing. And I would look to the spiritual teachers to help me and to give me that advice, or that confirmation of like, yep, this is what I'm going through, or yep, this is what I should be doing, because it was really difficult, trying to kind of traversing the spiritual awakening until you realize that you have to be your person. You have to be your teacher. You have to go within for what you are wanting to create, what you are wanting to know. Like, you got to ask yourself these big questions. Like, your soul knows what it wants to do, what it's here to do. And so, it's truly amazing to just to kind of, like I said, witness this and to be a part in any way that I could to help him. And I told him, keep your heart open. Keep your heart open to love. So you have an open heart. Keep giving and receiving love and being open, because I feel like the number one thing that I keep coming back to is the fact that we need to remain open to love. We need to really, truly anchor. I think I just saw something float by the camera. Let me know if you saw something, because I could have sworn I just saw like a little orb fly through my hair. Anyways, we got to keep remaining open to love. And that is so important. That is super important. And I feel like it's something that gets not enough attention, not enough emphasis on. And in the spiritual community and in, on YouTube world, a lot of people dismiss it, and it can be kind of oversighted, and people don't see it as something that's important, but it truly, truly is. We will not be able to step into the role that we are here to be in our mission, if we do not have an open heart. We cannot fulfill the mission if we do not have an open heart. And I feel that that is of utmost importance. And it's something I feel like my guides and the Ascended Masters constantly go back to, of keeping an open heart. And that is one thing I kind of kept emphasizing to him, because he did say he kept feeling like he needed to fight some of these people out here. And I told him, no, you need to send love to people, even the people you don't like, the people you dislike. Just picture them in a pink bubble of love, and just watch it kind of float from your reality. I was like, but you don't respond negatively. I said, don't respond negatively, because you just continue the cycle. You continue the cycle of you're feeling hurt, you hurt somebody else, they hurt you, and it just goes in this circle, this spiral of just continuing the same thing, and you're gonna keep receiving the same experiences. I said, you literally have to change, and how you're responding, and you have to keep an open heart and see everybody else as the same love as you, because they are. Everybody is existing as love, even if they are unaware of it, and even if they don't even know it. So keep being and coming from a place of love to everyone, and to remember that love is what will really truly change our world. When we can all have our hearts open and remembering that we are love. We're here to really anchor in our love and our light frequency, and to become our greatest and highest self here on earth. Once we realize that, that's going to change our entire world. That's going to change everyone and everything and all that we experience. And that's not something that is going to happen overnight, but that's something that we're going to have to be aware of, and to remember that we have to do it differently. We have to keep an open heart, and that is where the true change is being, embodying from the place of your open heart. Walking that talk, embodying it. And, I did tell him, gave him some examples about, like, what if years and years and years ago, like, I didn't have an open heart, and I just was really like in my own little world, and I just walked past you. Like, you would have said something to me and I would have just kept walking, because back then, being in fear, or being in the energy of a closed heart with so much fear, I would have just been afraid that someone, like, you were just gonna, like, I don't know, like, hurt me or something. I said, when you come from this open space, your open heart, and you're really trusting, you're trusting in yourself, you're trusting in spirit, you're trusting in the universe. I was like, you don't think those things, you don't have thoughts of that. You don't think those things, and I said, I knew when we crossed paths, like, I'm here to help you. And I felt like I wanted to help you. This moment was here for a reason, and I was definitely going to take the opportunity to be of help and to be of service, as much as I was able. And I believe that's important. I believe it's so important, because we're here to truly be the change. We're not here to just talk about it. We're not here to just throw the videos out there of we're here to really truly live it and embody it, and help people go out into the world and help people that need help, and if we cross paths with somebody that's in need, are we going to take that opportunity to love them, to help them out, or are you going to take it as an opportunity to judge them, to criticize them, to try to condemn them? We have an opportunity in so many moments in our life, moment to moment, of how we are showing up in the world, and if we are giving more love, or if we are going to give into fear. We have that choice. You have that choice, every single one of us. And if you're watching this video, you are one who is aware enough to know that it's an important choice. So, as I've told my daughter, you can never go wrong being kind to other people, and to always choosing love and kindness over fear. Don't stay stuck in fear. Don't stay stuck in fear. So I wanted to share this with you. This experience really changed my view. In some way, I feel like it changed my heart. Like I said, I was honored to have crossed paths with him, and but I felt like I had seen his heart and his, like, holiness, like his godness of who he is inside, in his true self, underneath all of what he's experiencing. And it was really touching. It was really touching. And it just gave me, like I said, a whole different perspective. Of course, I came home, and when we sat at the dinner table to eat dinner, I remember just being in a place of gratitude. Being in a place of gratitude for what I have, and for my family. And I think it's easy to, sometimes we don't often acknowledge all that we do have, and to remember to stay in gratitude, because there are people out there that have it way worse. Remember to count your blessings. Remember to count your blessings, friends. And just know, I mean, people out there, people in your community, people out there and where you're living are, you know, going through worse, way worse. And you might think your problems are terrible. They feel like they seem like mountains, but they're not mountains compared to other people that are going through it worse, that don't have a place to live or don't have food to eat. So sorry about that. But anyways, I really wanted to share this with you. And if you are able to help somebody, I hope you do. I hope that if this opportunity ever came up for you, and I'm sure sometimes, or it has for some of you, I hope you take the opportunity to choose love and to hold out a helping hand for others, even especially during times like these. Holidays and so much uncertainty in our world and in our country. And anyways, I love you guys so very much. Until next time, take very, very good care. Bye for now.